term guided reading has changed in meaning throughout the years. Originally, guided reading just referred to a teacher guiding a child through the reading of a book that was at his or her instructional level. What that meant was that it was a book that provided that just right challenge so that students would grow their reading skills. So that meant that they recognized about 90% of the words without much difficulty, meaning they only made a mistake in maybe 1 out of every 10 words. And the thinking behind that is it provides just enough challenge so that reading growth occurs, but not too much so that the child becomes frustrated. Now, guided reading, the definition has changed, especially in the United States over the past maybe 10, 15 years, due to the work of 2 researchers there named Fontes and Pinal. And what they have created is a guided reading leveling system. What they've done is they've looked at all the books for our early readers, and they've leveled them from A to Z. And in each level, the books get progressively more difficult, meaning the challenges for the reader get a little bit more as you go up to the level. So you would begin with level A, which would have very simple text. 1 sentence on a page, there would be a close match between the text, the words, and the pictures, etc. And the role of a teacher in guided reading in this new definition is to teach those skills and strategies that a reader needs to know at that particular level. Once children have lots of opportunities to practice the skills at that level and the strategies, then they're ready to move on to the next level, and so on. So it provides a really good guide in terms of teaching English, of moving children from very simple to more complex texts, and really knowing what challenges a child would have at each level, and those are the things that you'd focus on instructionally. Guided reading is so critical because it's designed to meet students exactly where they are in terms of what they need instructionally. So one of the key ideas behind guided reading is finding that just right book. That book that is on his or her instructional level that's going to provide just enough challenge but not too much so that they grow in their reading skills. Guided reading books also are different from early readers. A lot of early readers will focus, for example, on sight words. So you'll have a lot of work building that sight word knowledge. Other early readers will focus on phonics. So you'll have a lot of work developing those decoding or phonics skills. But in guided reading books, they pull all of that together. And they focus on what we call the 3 cues we use while we read. For example, when we read, we use what are called graphophonic cues, meaning we use our ability to sound out words using our phonics skills, and also the words that we recognize by sight, learning those high-frequency sight words. So that's one cue that we use. Another cue is what we call semantic cues. Those are related to the meanings of the words. So all the work we do, for example, with vocabulary building is so that children can use those meaning or semantic cues while they read. And the other cue is called syntactic, and that refers to the grammar. So when we're reading aloud to our children, for example, they get to understand the music of English. They get to understand how English sentences are created, where different parts of a sentence would go, for example, the adjective before the noun, those sorts of things. So while they're reading, they're using those cues to really predict what kinds of words would appear in different parts of a sentence. So in guided reading, we practice all of those skills and strategies using all 3 of those cueing systems, which is highly valuable in terms of developing real readers who can do the kinds of reading they need to do when a teacher isn't there to support them. So we're developing those skills that we have as skilled readers.
In the U.S.
Guided reading is a key part of instruction in many classrooms in the United States. It's used a bit differently, however. In the United States, very little is taught in whole group setting. Teacher might teach just a little bit in whole group, and then they break out into small groups. So in a guided reading lesson, for example, in the US, a teacher would find a level that's right for a small amount of her students, maybe 4 to 6 students would be sitting around the table, and she would guide them through a reading of that book at those children's specific instructional level. While she's doing that, the other children would be working independently. They might be working on some writing, engaging in learning centers, or maybe even doing some partner reading with a classmate in order to develop fluency. So it has become a key part of instruction in the United States. However, In other parts of the world where whole group teaching is the norm, such as here in many places in Asia, guided reading takes on a different look and feel. You're still really trying to find those just right books for the majority of your students, so that's a key aspect of it. But the real value of a guided reading system in a whole class setting is not only does it give you a system to go in very small stair-step ways from simple to more complex challenges in terms of the reading, but also the criteria for each level really guides the teacher in terms of what she needs to focus on instructionally to move children in their reading growth.